Today on True Patriot Love, we're going to talk about housing and whether to rent or own. And I'm lucky enough to have our resident friend, Chris Chipote, in today to talk to us about the age-old conundrum. Do I keep renting or do I buy? Good morning, buddy.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to come on the show. Yeah, it's a thing that people come. We were talking prior to the beginning of the show about what happens when somebody comes and sits down across the table and says, "Hey, Chris, I want to buy." The funny thing is that we don't even talk about the house or where they want to live. I go straight to the individual's life. And I think that's the key. It's where are you working? What's your game plan for the next 5 years? It's really more about, because in some cases, Paul, I have suggested people not to buy. And in some cases, based on their finances, it's like, yeah, it makes sense to buy because you can weather any type of fluctuation in the market. But if you're going to freak out over a particular little fluctuation here like that, maybe it's best to stay put, stay in your parents' basement or stay renting or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of details that we're going to get into. Obviously, you have a lot of stats, so hit me with the stats. I know you're an info guy. You're an info guy, but the reality behind it is that it's very particular to the individual. I'm gonna blanket statement with that, we'll go into some granular stuff in a second.
Well, I woke up this morning and all the mainstream TV is talking about the year-over-year decline in sales, 6.3%. Houses across Canada have dropped. I think we're down to 652,000 across Canada nationally. Less than $1 million in Toronto right now. So you hear all this, and I'm constantly hearing all these people saying, and they're mostly baby boomers or a little younger, saying, "Oh, my child will never have a home. My child will never have a home." And I keep going to these dinner parties and I meet friends and I say to them, "Well, that might not be a bad thing." And they're like, "Oh my goodness, no. We were told as young people, we had to buy a home so we could gain equity and we could appreciate, and, over time our house would gain value." And I'm like, well, I don't think that's the scenario anymore. So why is that a good idea? Explain to me. And they're like, because it is. Because your parents, who were baby boomers or pre-baby boomers, were telling you that you had to double down in real estate and then sit for 40 years. And quite frankly, they told you they were this huge, and my dad does this to me all the time. Like, God love him. He's just turned 90. He's a terrific guy. But, he tells the story as we're sitting there all the time in the car and we're driving to my place. And he says, I bought my house for $32,000, right? Guys. And I bought this house. He doesn't own it anymore. He sold it, but I bought this house and I sold it for $1 million, right? I said, yeah. And I said, so what did you pay in property tax over the years? He says, what do you mean? I said, well, how much property tax did you pay on that house? I don't know. And I said, how much maintenance did you put in the house? Because at the end, the foundation cracked. We were in there. I know I ponied up for 2 floors in his basement for him. I put them in. I bought the flooring. I bought the underbed. I did that twice to him. I said, the pool cracked and leaked. I said, so I remember all those things, Dad. I said, so did you take your repair maintenance? Did you take your property tax? Did you take, the opportunity cost of the money, that $32,000 that you could have put into a T-bill, or you could have bought Apple, or did you look at any of those things and did you say, was that a good investment, right? Because you're looking at it like an investment now. You're telling me the story like it was an investment, right? So if you're treating real estate like an investment, then was it a good idea? So he goes quiet, man. He's not doing the hero talk. And he's like, I'm sure he's like under his breath going, that brat, but it's true, right? Yeah. It's true. Like, you got to look at, okay, if you took that 32,000 50 years ago and you took that $1 million, is that a great investment? And could you have, if you look at the incremental interest component to that, was it? Right? Now, I get your point, right? You made it to me earlier in the show. You said people need a place to live.
Yeah.
So that's the social cost, right? There's the financial cost.
That's really why they're doing it, though.
Right.
I truly believe, because if it's a numbers thing, we're going to lose the battle. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I believe that we're going to lose, especially if you're entrepreneurial and you have,
Yeah.
you know, but here's why people buy homes. People buy homes to have a foundation.
Right.
You know, so that you can be part of a community. So I'm going to talk to you about the Mickey Mouse stuff that most people would say. If we're talking, you know, if we're talking dollars and cents, maybe not, to your point. But if we're talking about our purpose and fulfillment, let's talk about that for a second, okay? Foundation is important because now you have a house, you know where the library is so that your kids can develop. You're a walking distance to the school. You know where the grocery store is so that you can go in there. You know which aisle has everything. You know where the nearest Walmart is. You know, so now foundation, and then there's legacy. You know, there's a certain sense of pride that your dad was saying. It was like, I own a home for 40 years. That word ownership has something that just it enlightens us, you know, it just brightens us up. Then we have leverage. At some point during that time, he had the leverage that he had some equity in that home that he was able to perhaps, I'm not too sure, but perhaps use it for other endeavors. We also have privacy, right? If you're owning a house, in theory, you can't have a landlord come in here and knock and say, hey, I'm just doing an inspection. I'll be there in 24 hours. They have to give you 24 hours. But anyway, I'll be here in 24 hours to check the house. Like all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, the house is a mess. So you get privacy. And another thing is flexibility. When you own, you can sell. But when you're renting, you know, I guess you have the flexibility of you know, getting up and leaving, but you also don't have the flexibility of taking back any of the money that you put into it.
Right.
That's me on the other side, Paul. I know we talked about putting a glove here and just duking it out, but that's from my perspective. I just find that I think that ownership is definitely more of an emotional thing than a business transaction. And I'll drop it there because I don't want to get into the numbers because I'll lose that battle. But it's possible.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. So, you know, it's interesting. At these dinner parties, I get these parents, right? And they talk about Billy and Janie and the fact that they'll never own a home. So the next thing I say to them is, how old are they? You know, and they turn white. They go all sheepish, right? And they go, well, they're 30. I go, well, are they married? No. Do they want to have kids? No.
You hate it.
And I go, well, that doesn't shock me. And they're like, all of a sudden they grab a drink and they come back and they go, you know, I want to tell you about my problems. I don't want to hear about your kid problems, the fact that they live with you. All I'm saying to you, and I'm not trying to be difficult though, is they're 30. They don't have kids. They have no interest in having kids. They haven't settled down. They don't have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. They haven't figured out a relationship. So quite frankly, the odds are birth rates in Canada right now. There was just an article, great article yesterday came out, and it said the only growth in Canada will come from new immigrants going forward. So the only population growth in Canada it's expected in the next few years will come from immigrating people from other places. So now you're not a poster child for that. I know you and your lovely wife have 4 kids. So you have 4 kids. There aren't a lot of Chris's around. Right. So as this new generation, as people get older now, so we have this kind of interesting dynamic, and which is, I think is, when I say rent versus own, it's going to be a very interesting scenario because you have we have 25% of our population aging over 65. So we have for sure, like it's going up to 10 or 12 million people in Canada. 25% of our population out of 40 is going to be over the age of 65. We have a younger population that doesn't want to have children. So what's going to happen is we're catching this weird wave, and I know we're seeing these people getting older. They need to sell their houses, so now they see a declining market. They need to sell their house. So when I see this stat, it's interesting. And, you know, it's kind of funny because, and I'm not trying to be tough on the guys from GTA Realtors and from Treb and all those other things, but they say there's 100,000 buyers sitting on the sideline waiting to come in. No, there's not. No, there's not. I totally disagree with that scenario. And the reason why is you have a lot of sellers sitting on the sidelines, a lot of people getting older, and they're thinking, oh, crap, I missed the window of selling this house at a premium price, and now I'm stuck in this declining market. I have a bunch of younger people coming up who, quite frankly, have no interest in having a family. The new immigrants I'm bringing, it's not like back in the 50s and 60s when we brought the Europeans over and they came with a bag full of cash, right?
Yeah.
The new immigrants are coming over. They're starting from zero, right? They're coming from, they're starting off with
coming out like this.
Yeah, they're coming with school loans, right? We loaded them up with school loans, Well, we did a dreadful job of doing that. We loaded them up with school loans. They're sitting there now and they're saying, I got to live in a home with 10 people and I got to take a single room, which, by the way, it's very interesting. I tell this story, which is a crazy story. I'm going to go off for a minute. I got invited to I'm going to call it a baby event, a baby shower. It's to celebrate someone having a baby. I went on the weekend and I went up to Brampton, right? I don't go to Brampton a lot, quite frankly, because I don't do any business there. I went to Brampton and I tried to get into this subdivision, and the snowbanks were still there. So I get off
and just imagine where this is going.
I get off the highway. I get into the subdivision. I try to wind through the subdivision to get to the home, right? Cars are everywhere, right? So they are lined up along the street. So for those of you who don't go to Brampton recently, you should go to Brampton and you should check out what a disaster most local subdivisions are. So I'm trying to go there. I'm winding in. There's cars parked in every direction on both sides of the street, inside, outside the driveways, on the street, also hanging off their driveways, over sidewalks, and basically up on snowbanks. No way, if there's a fire in this subdivision, do the fire trucks get into the subdivision. So these are all the people that live in the homes, right? So it's okay in the summer, doesn't work in the winter, right? That we have all these people living in the homes. Then I get to where this event is, and there's 100 people in this house. It's loaded up. That street is a disaster, right? So it takes me 45 minutes to wind into this house. I get to the house. There's too many people. So we do this thing and then we leave, right? We decide, okay, we'll leave. It's a nice event. We love the guy who's doing it. He's a wonderful guy. His baby's beautiful. But you know what? We're driving. I said to my wife, I said, this is just, it's housing and immigration that's gone awry. And this is just a case study for it. And someone should look at it because it's not safe, it's not healthy, and it doesn't work. But unfortunately, that's a segment of our population right now who needs a decade to get out of their debts to get into home ownership. So my thinking on this right now, and this is where I'm rent versus buy, right? I'm going to go back to that now. Those people have to rent.
I agree.
Right? People coming from
100%.
People coming from parents, baby boomers that were born here, could be given the down payment by their parents. But I think where you're making sense, where you're talking about it, if they don't want to have a family, they don't want to set down roots. And quite frankly, if they don't have a stable job, because that's the next thing is I'm sitting at the dinner party and I'm talking to that person who just told me about their 30-year-old son who lives in the basement, right? They don't have a stable job. So quite frankly, giving them money to do a down payment when they may need to move.
No, that's a massive risk.
It's a massive risk.
Rent is the way to go.
At that point,
I couldn't agree with you. I'd love to disagree with you, but in this case, I totally agree with you. Everything that you stated, right? No intentions of kids. They're not coupled up.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I tell my son, as long as if you're working. And you show me that you have some sort of vision in terms of being able to stand on your own, you can stay in the house. I mean, as long as you want, which is a total opposite absolutely. The total opposite. My mom was trying to get me out as soon as possible. She's like, listen, as soon as you turn 18, I want you to go and get a job, unless I was going to school, which I was, but that's another point. For my son, I tell him, save. I have a different approach, and this is stay here, stay home, but save and then invest. And you're probably thinking, hold on a second, what do you tell him to invest in? So it's kind of twofold. All right. So right now, he's a little investment account, and I'm just trying to show him the power of compounded interest and how important it is for him to put money into a savings account, an investment account, mutual funds, whatever, right now, and forget about it. And then when he's 65, he's gonna thank himself for it. So that's one piece. But the other piece is save to invest in real estate, but as an investment, duplex, triplex, that type of thing in areas outside of the GTA, where you can buy, you can go to Windsor and you can buy a $350,000-$400,000 house. And then what I'm telling him to do as well is the minute that he buys that house, go on YouTube. There's nothing you can't learn. Learn how to plaster a wall, learn how to install laminate, learn how to put baseboard, learn how to install a toilet, because in the absence of money, you need to apply time and effort.
Yeah.
So that's how you can build up your wealth, so that then eventually when you decide to have a wife, some kids, whatever, then you have all of that wealth, that knowledge that you've acquired, and now you're a contributor to society. Now you can be a better father, a better husband, a better whatever. Like, I think that's the people that are coming in, internationally, that are already 20 years old, 25 years old. I don't have a game plan for them yet, but because my son is at home, I'm like, this is the vision that I have for him, so that it's going at his pace, and at the same time, it's going to turn him into, I think, a contributor to society.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Fantastic. I think, you kind of got ahead of me again, like you usually do, right? No, you did, because that's where I was going with this. Quite frankly, my advice right now, and a little bit of different logic, but I'll take you how I got to your same conclusion. So I started watching the government. I do these budget shows here at TPL, at True Patriot Love. And I basically started watching the government encourage affordable housing and rental units. So Anna Bayul, they set up a Build Canada Homes Fund, where she's building a bunch of I call them low rental or affordable housing units through the government. Then they're also spending about $115 billion to subsidize or to support municipalities doing affordable housing. So then I started watching the municipalities, and they were struggling. And the federal government was saying, you better build rental homes. You better get them fast, because no one's going to have the money to buy.
I agree.
And quite frankly, they don't want to buy, because they figured out, not only have they figured out the rent versus buy equation and the fact that they could probably make a better return, something the generation before me didn't figure out. But they also figured out appreciation's not going to be as high. They're not going to see the growth like my dad. So the municipalities started to say to people, here's some programs where you can get in, where if you build a duplex or a triplex, you can get some tax benefits. That didn't work. Toronto was a huge flop. They tried sixplex, they tried duplexes. Honestly, the sixplexes, people revolted, because you think about it. What happened was every senior that still got stuck in their home. So that 25% of the population, those who are 65 to 75, still living in their home, right away they saw through it. They were like, time out. If you're going to do that, and we're not going to vote for you, because quite frankly, that's going to hurt our home value. Because the more rental properties, sixplexes you build in my community, you're going to take down my property value of my single detached home. They got it, right?
They're right.
So they cut it off.
Yeah.
So government said, okay, I don't know what to do, but I still have the money there. So they're still federally trying to push this initiative. It's still slow going forward, but they're giving the money. So I went through before the show and I took a look at all the provinces where we've waived development charges, we've waived permit fees, we've eliminated HST. And it's almost every province in Canada has
except Ontario.
Ontario, actually.
I don't think have we ever waived the development? I've never heard of that.
Mississauga just did it on rental homes.
Oh, wow.
Right? Toronto just did it on duplexes and sixplexes. So we're just starting to do it now. So the message we're sending. So this is an interesting message. So I got there a different way, but I got the same way as you. All of a sudden, the system, somewhere along the way, they've realized, I guess they've looked at the numbers, and that's being the governments at different, levels, provincially and federally, have realized that home sales don't have a good shot at going up.
Yeah.
Right. They haven't said it publicly, but quite frankly, they've seen the stats and they've seen, just looking at the normal demographics of aging versus birth rates, it's not that hard to figure out. So they said, okay, what do? We can't have a bunch of new people. And the only way we can grow our population is bringing in new people.
What a conundrum, huh?
Well, it is, but all the
we need new people. They can't afford to buy. They got to rent. There's not enough rental. There's quite a few things that we gotta think about.
Well, that's where this war, and it's another show for another day. But there's a whole show that we need to talk about, because this war right now happening in Iran has a number of challenges, especially if it goes long and the country is decimated, because there isn't a country to put these people. The problem we have now is every country is full. Yeah. And they're full because there's no housing and there's no social programs to accommodate them anymore. It's not that no one wants them. It's the fact that this is something that's got to be dealt with, and that's a whole other show. But here we are. So in Canada, we're sitting here and we're looking at this, and we're trying to incentivize people to build affordable rental properties through government subsidization. So we're working against, if you think about it, we're working against our actual homeowners, right? So now you don't have to comment. I know you're in the industry, but that's my view. So my view is we're really working against the value of our own. So now if I'm sitting there and I'm sitting with Jimmy and Janie's parents at the dinner party, I say to them the same thing. I just said, buy a rental property. So have them rent. Go get them to stay on the first floor.
That too.
Right? So they take the first floor, and the 2 floors above them are rented out.
Absolutely.
But don't live room by room. Don't do what some of these people are doing now. The challenge is that Brampton story I just told you. The challenge of that story, quite frankly, is it's a nightmare for your social for your social mental well health. It's not good. And that I never tell anyone to do that, because I've seen that model before. It very seldomly works. Quite frankly, it's hard on the guy who's levered. He's levered multiple homes, basically.
And the wear and tear, it doesn't pay off.
But so by the time he goes to sell it, he's rebuilt the home. I had someone call me a year ago, and it was an old friend of mine who I met through Shara. And he called me, and he said to me, do you want to buy this home? And I said, I don't know. He said, I've redone the home, and it has multiple rooms. It has 10 rooms for people to rent. And he said, I said, does it meet code? Right? He goes, no.
Crickets. Oh.
Right? And I said, so you're saying to me, if I take the home, I have to gut it, rebuild it inside, and then I have to try to sell it. The neighborhood is full of exactly the identical type of people who have bought these homes and subdivide them illegally into multiple homes. It doesn't work. Not the way to go. Right? It doesn't work. So, I say to people, go out and buy yourself a rental unit that's segregated by family. Pay it off. That's the way. Then buy the next one. And then buy the next one.
That's the way.
And if by luck you meet a nice lady or man along the way, and you decide you want to have, then you have a nice little nest egg. You haven't over-leveraged yourself, and you can get into it. And that's the way to do it. And then the parents look at me and go, but aren't they going to lose that opportunity to have their money grow and everything else? I said, well, their investment will grow. The money, aside from what they're paying for the unit. So number one, once it's built, the unit will carry itself.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to live on the first floor. They're going to then pay off what they...
Brilliant.
It'll pay for itself. It pays for itself. They can take the money from their other job. They can go out and actually, invest in something, invest in
something
another
else.
Apple,
Yeah,
right? Or Nvidia or whatever, make a ton of money
Precisely.
and have a great life.
100%.
Retire early because quite frankly, I don't think there's going to be any pension plans for them when they're ready. So they got to set themselves up. So this is a really nice way to go. You're not fighting the government. You're using the money of the government. So you're not going out and buying a home, trying to struggle through against the government. You're actually working with the government's objective to build these homes. If they're going to bring in people, you got to make sure you get nice renters. Hopefully the renter laws will get better, you know, and they are getting better. They're developing, you know, eviction laws and everything to get people out, because you do hear horror stories.
Yep, that's true.
You know, you have to be very selective. So before the show, it's interesting. I did a little analysis, and we took a look at basically rent versus buy over a 10-year period on $1 million home. And we ran it off, or the average price per home by province. And we ran it off to see if it said buy or rent.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
Sure.
Interesting.
What is that? What did you get? What's your analysis?
The only province that it told you to 100% rent based on the pure economics of running.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
The only province that told you to rent over buy?
Yep.
I only have two that come to mind, and I have to take a guess. I'm going to go with the highest home price average. So I'm going to go with Vancouver. I'm going to go with BC.
Well, actually, because the rents are so high in BC right now, they still haven't come down enough. So the rents are still the rents in
So
BC,
I lost.
No, it's all right. The rents in Vancouver right now are still $4,000 for a 2-bedroom.
I see.
So it didn't catch. So there was a slight increment. So basically, it told us that buying saves you over 10 years about $40,000.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it is still advantageous
still
if you think about it, right?
Amazing.
Now that's over 10 years. It probably, again, if it's not comparing it to another investment, it's just saying rent versus buy, right?
Let me take something from there. So you said 10 years, and I just want to highlight the fact that before you're thinking of buying or renting, I mean, we started the show with this, and I'm going to say it again.
Yeah.
It is critical to look at the individual's lifestyle, their vision, their goals. What are they trying to accomplish? It's not, you should buy because ChatGPT said. It is so based on the individual. So that is 10 years. If if it's in your cards for you to be living in Canada for 10 years, then yeah, sure, buy. But some people are adamant that they're like, nope, I want to live here for the next 5 years, and then I want to travel the world for 5, and then I want to. Well, in that case, then we need a different strategy, and that's why it's important to look at lifestyle and future. Like, what are you trying to accomplish in the future? It's not a blanket statement of you should buy anymore. And that changed ever since, I made a note here, that changed ever since people started to make money online. So I just want to drop another nugget here.
Yep.
Initially, okay, like, you know, your parents, they decided that purchasing a home was the best way that they knew how to preserve wealth and build wealth. There was no other option. Or you go in and you buy a farmland and you start farming, or like, you know what I mean? It was just more, you know, it was more ding, ding, ding. Like, you have to actually do stuff.
Yeah.
But now we have a new generation and a new way of making money. People are making money online. In fact, it's so easy to make money now. And you know, sometimes I see the money that my son, he has a little investment account. I see the money that he's made in his investment account, and inside I'm like irritated in a way, because I'm like, oh my God, like, you've been investing for less time than me and you're making more money than my investments. So it's something that has changed. We have to realize that this way of making money from being at home and investments and Instagram and marketing and Facebook and Meta and all this stuff that happens online, that has changed the way that we preserve and make money. Therefore, it'll change the way that we see home ownership. And honestly, at the end of the day, all we really need is shelter. That is the part that we want to highlight. Shelter, whether we own it or rent it, it's pretty if you think about it, it's pretty insignificant. What we want is the wealth so that when we can't work anymore, we have something to leverage so that we can continue to live our lives until we take the last breath. But that's really in the most basic way, that's really the whole concept, is preservation of wealth.
Yes.
So now if there's other ways to make money, then maybe owning is not necessary. However, if you're going to be there for long term, I agree. And I would argue, not argue, but I would probably, it's not an argument. I would predict that if you ran this for 20 years, it would make even more sense to buy. So for someone that is established and this is what I love to do, this is my community, I'm having my kids here, I love that school, I want them to go to that school, I want them to go to UFT and to York and whatever, and you know exactly where you want your family to kind of, put roots down, then buying is always going to be the option. But it's all dependent on the individual.
And if it appreciates.
And if it appreciates.
Yeah,
for sure.
So now the interesting thing is, so
what's the appreciation that you calculated?
So this is just
3 to 5%, or?
Yeah, so it's like inflation is what we factored into this. But the interesting part of this, when you look at it, that's all assuming
it goes up gradually.
It goes up gradually, right? Yeah. Now that doesn't always happen, and that's why I think we've learned. But it's interesting as we go through this and we looked at the analysis. Ontario was the only one where you should rent, and you should rent because you save yourself $11,600 over 10 years more. Wow! So there's no advantage to. Now it's interesting. You could say, well, I got some equity in it. You did, quite frankly. You got a little bit of equity, quite frankly, depending on what interest rates and your payment plan and what your term is and all that good stuff. So you got some money in it. But quite frankly, you could take that additional monies that you didn't pay in property tax and all the other things, you can invest it into other things, and you probably should have caught it. Then we didn't even account for that in this analysis. This is just straight up rent versus buy, and looking at $1 million or whatever the average price was per region was. So that's what we did. So it's a very interesting analysis. And now when I'm sitting at that dinner party, I always ask them that, did you run the analysis? No, we didn't run it, but I'm okay. Well, maybe you need to run it. So now all these people sitting. So now you got a marketplace full of, and we just saw it from the stats today. We have 100,000 apparently from all the agencies across Canada. We have hundreds of thousands of people sitting on the sidelines waiting, right? We have hundreds of thousands of people that are aging that are waiting to sell. Yep. So at some point they should marry up. The issue is, when do they marry up and at what point, and how low does it go before they meet each other? And that's, it was interesting. You said something very compelling on the last show that I remember. I use this now everywhere I go. Real estate's not about, when you buy real estate or sell real estate, it's not at where you are today. It's where you're going to meet it, where it is tomorrow, right? So that's kind of following that trace line and figuring out where to hit it, right? So now you have a bunch of people aging who are trying to figure out when the magic number. So the interesting part is that they're not selling now. So the inventory on the market now hasn't gone up. You're seeing it. You haven't seen more homes enter onto the market. So they're sitting saying, oh, it's going to go up at some point. So they're trying to...
They're trying to time it.
They're trying to create a shortage in supply.
But father time is going to be against them. They're going to get older. They're going to, and even when I'm consulting people that want to buy or sell, I always tell them, it's very difficult to time the market. You just have to make the right decision in the time that you're in right now. And I wrote down here while you were speaking, I said, we need perhaps, I don't know, I'm going to say this, but maybe I'm going to get in trouble. We need better familial support. So I think there comes a time that, children, grandparents, and parents, and that, we all need to kind of hold hands and just say, okay, well, how does this work better? And perhaps the time is that, these folks are getting out of their house, allowing their children with their families to move into their home, and then instead of paying for the house that has been paid off, maybe they buy a condo and they pay for the condo for the grandparent, and then it's kind of like a trade. I think there needs to be more barter trading happening right now, and avoid the transaction. There's a lot of fees, a lot of costs actually that we can avoid if we can barter trade within family. barter trade and just go back to prehistoric days, man. We need to go back to
Like
some
they do it in Europe.
basic stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do, because you can't even buy in. Well, there are some places like in London. Good luck trying to buy something in London, right?
Yeah. It's handed
So,
down from generation to
it makes
generation,
sense.
right? So you get
Yeah.
they have
we
50-year
need to go to
mortgages,
that.
right?
Yeah.
They have 50-year mortgages that they get paid off between generations of people before they extinguish. Like, I know that sounds crazy,
Yeah,
but
I mean, it makes sense, and we need to adopt some of the strategies that these guys have in Europe. Perhaps, I don't know.
so now here's the other piece, and this is the piece I haven't brought up, but this is also what I'm sitting at the dinner party, and they go to get their second drink because I'm sure they're like, I'm by that time.
To you, I'm like, oh
at
god.
this time they're like,
Yeah,
oh my
I don't
goodness.
even need a drink. I need 6 shots right now. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, where is Janie and Jimmy gonna work?
Oh boy.
And they look at me. What do you mean? I said, well, last time I looked, there's not a lot of people I know that are having a job for life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I say to them, because I'm meeting most of the people from Ontario. So I'm saying, if you live in a major city in Ontario, infrastructure-wise, if you buy that house, it better be as close as possible to the work that you have. Number one, the amount of time people require, whether at home or in the office right now, is a lot. So the amount of effort, it's not like the old days, 8 hours. A lot of people aren't working 8 hours anymore, right? Especially now, times are tougher. They're working harder to pay the bills. So you better not be working 8 hours, because if you're just working 8 hours, you're probably not doing enough.
And you're gonna get let go.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
In the end, probably it's not going to work out, right? So if you're only doing your 8 hours, the next thing is, quite frankly, given the commute times, the fact that we've got the social infrastructure strain from having massive immigration over the last few years into the major cities in Canada, it's caused us to have a lot of travel time. Travel time sucks.
Yeah.
Right? So the
sure does.
chance to have a great marriage and a great relationship and a great family life and go see Bobby and Sally's baseball and gymnastics, if you're working in Scarborough and you're living in Mississauga,
Good luck.
isn't so great. Right. And I know, it's interesting. So, we made a couple decisions for our family in the last little while that required us to move closer to a school. Right. Has it been great for us? Good home. Yeah. Neighborhood. Okay. Right. Travel time sucks. Right. We're spending more time on the road now to the businesses and to get everything done. Our quality of life, we're a little more tired. That extra half hour, 45 minutes of travel a day isn't, really beautiful to have, but that's what we have to sacrifice. So you got to be as close as you can. If I'm younger and starting my career right now and struggling through, and I can tell you, even in my generation, at points in my life, in jobs that I had, I was on the road 300 days a year.
Wow.
So I traveled to make a living 300 days a year. If I'm a young person starting out and I'm seeing where all the money's being sunk into Canada right now, defense, defense is a huge one, right? All that defense spending is going to happen in outlying areas.
Energy.
All those are going to happen in outlying areas, right? They're not happening in the core of a major city.
Yeah, good point.
So moving into a core of a major city and having to drive to Oshawa, moving into the core of a main city and having to drive to Hamilton, all those infrastructure and defense and all the core services and infrastructure items the government is spending and investing in right now is something you need to watch. And that's where you have to be moving.
Absolutely.
Now, if you go there, should you buy when you get there? No. I didn't. When I moved to the different cities and built the different properties, I would go first and I'd spend the first year.
Scope it out.
Yeah, and figure out, did I like it? Did I feel comfortable?
Yeah, exactly.
If I lost this job, could I find another job in the area that gave me a living that I was accustomed to, that I'd be happy with? So those are those social decisions as well as family that you're talking about that you got to figure out. I don't hear those conversations, which I find it interesting. It's, it always starts with that conversation. Well, Jimmy and Janie can't buy a home. It's not affordable. And then I get down to after, the second drink, we're having the conversation of, should they buy a home, rent versus buy? And quite frankly, given where work is going to be, where should they buy a home?
Yeah. Yeah.
that becomes the
Yeah.
conundrum of
Yeah.
figuring out kind of your lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I also think that it's changing drastically, where people are starting to not be afraid to uproot. I'm
Oh.
seeing. I mean, people. Yeah, yeah.
Thank goodness. Well, you would
It's
know, you
changing.
did.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
know
I
that.
mean, that
You immigrated
yeah,
here, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
you get
and
it.
and
Yeah.
also, we have a house in Mexico as well. So we are seeing that people are more open to start to test other areas of the world.
Right.
I had a really good friend of mine, Mike, who went to Portugal. He had no roots of Portugal, and they went to Portugal, and they're living there, and they're having a blast. And I'm just hearing a lot of that stuff that's happening now. That's extreme. They went out of the country, but what I'm thinking as well is that there are different areas of this country that are developing that I think people are starting to be open to uprooting, and okay, let me try it in Sudbury, let me try it in North Bay, let me try it in Windsor, let me try it in Manitoba, a different province, Calgary. Like there's I think there's a flavor happening when people are open to trying different things, and I think that's going to help. I really think that's going to help.
Having lived in America for 12 years, right, back and forth, I know that, right? Like I know what it's like, to uproot and go somewhere. And then I saw Americans who, quite frankly, for $1,000 extra would move from Michigan to California. So if you made an offer and said, I'm going to pay you $1,000 more,
they're gone.
They were gone. They were in the U-Haul driving. They didn't even fly, right? They had their own furniture on the back of the truck, and they were gone, right? But again, given their history and the way the world's gone and the number of wars
they're
and where
a little
they
bit
came
more,
from.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
They grab the bull by the horns and go. Yeah.
A country that has many natural disasters. So if you think it from tornadoes to hurricanes to forest fires, America sees a lot of action across it that we don't.
Absolutely.
And so, quite frankly, they've learned to be more transitory and to uproot. And I think we will too. One of the other things I wanted to chat with you about today, and I didn't want to leave it because you're a real estate, this is what you do full time. You're great at it. You coach people, you sell it, you do the whole gamut. Infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, it's a new thing that my parents didn't have to worry about. And I also, on the third drink, I also say to people, okay.
I wonder what happens on the fourth. Okay. Are we going to make it to the fourth in this show? Okay.
No, I cut them off. No. I say to them, you know what? You have to pay attention to where you're buying now. So it's not like the old days, a little more complicated for younger people than it was in my days. When I was young, you go out and you would buy a house, and we all had trades. We all grew up with trades. So we'd renovate our house, just like you're teaching your son. We'd go out and we knew how to build things. So we'd knock walls, build walls, put bathrooms in. We did it ourselves. Yeah. So we did that. All great if you can learn to do that. Now think about it. This is the interesting thing that we're doing. So this is and as governments, I don't think we focus on it. And as taxpayers, we don't spend enough time on it, right? So right now, and before the show, we took a look at it. We said, okay, what are the provincial projected deficits for this year? So March 2026 is ending, and we're looking at what the deficits by province will be. So I went through. BC is 13 billion, Alberta's 9 billion, Saskatchewan's 1 billion, Manitoba is 1.6 billion, Ontario is 13 billion, Quebec is 12 billion, New Brunswick is 1 billion, 1.3 billion, Nova Scotia 1.24, 367 million for PEI, and Newfoundland Labrador is $372 million. So there's not one province.
That's profitable.
We as a country for this upcoming year are going to surpass a $78 billion deficit as the country of Canada, the federal government. And we expect going forward in 2027, 65, and then 28, 63, and then 60 onward. So we're not looking at getting out of the deficit position. We've went and deferred development charges, permits, right? Which traditionally are used for infrastructure of cities. right? So what we've done is we've made the decision, given we're in rougher times, to defer maintenance. So if you think about your own business, your own house, you know, I'm paying the mortgage, but I don't have enough money to fix my lawn. I don't have enough money to fix the shed. I don't have enough money to, you know, put a new toilet in. I don't have enough money for those things. So I defer it. I say, okay, honey, we'll do that next year. We'll do it. So in essence, that's what we've done, right? We said we're going to do some maintenance on this. We're going to keep.
The only thing is that next year it could be more expensive.
Next year it could be more expensive or it could be worse. So, you know, we did a show on salt and infrastructure, and we use Calgary as an example with the main water drain that keeps bursting, and people go months and months without having to take a shower, to ration their water, right? Calgary, a main city, right? So we did a show on that. So, and I say to people now, I said, you know what, if you're going to rent versus buy, the thing you have to think about now, and it's something, number one, you're going to, those people who are getting older, right? You're going to buy that old fixer-upper. Now, I know I had a father, I had uncles who did it. I especially had uncles who bought old fixer-uppers, and I spent most of my childhood either
Helping
gutting or building an old fixer-upper, right? And I was there when they saw the mold and they cried. I was there when the plumbing was just terrible when we opened up the floor. I was there when the ceiling, you know, fell down. You name it, I was there. I was there in all those circumstances. So now, all these 25% people that are going into the over 65 are going to have homes. Their homes are past their best before date.
For sure.
Yeah. A home is only meant, so you know, this is something to think about for younger people now. A home is only meant to last so long. And my father had a hard time with that. You know, it's funny. My dad, you know, he tells the story about his $32 million and all that stuff, right? I go through it and I say to him, but Dad, you know, like, when we left that house, like that house was bad. And the guy who took it,
Poor guy.
right? You know what I mean? And, you know, but, you know, he was a guy who was in, recently to Canada, had a few bucks. And I think he was going to ride the right wave. He bought it at the right time. And he did hit it where he renovated it and resold it, I hope. And I hope that's what he did, because I hope he didn't hang on to it. And then
We should check that out.
Yeah, because truthfully, my dad's old home is right down at the average again. So he would have made no money. So the decade that he's had it now, he'd be at zero appreciation, right? He's back where he started. So, you know, he can sell it.
I hope he sold it.
But he also had the renovation costs on top of the, so because he got that old house, right? And that's a lesson learned. But so now, you know, these people, they're going in, they have the infrastructure of the home. So that's the sewage, the water, everything running into the home, the pipes, the mold, everything in the old house that you have to deal with. So you can take that house, but then you have all those things that it's not the best before date. Doesn't help you with the value of the house, because quite frankly, unless you're super handy and you can gut the house and you have enough money for a very costly renovation, because wood is still crazy. Metal is still crazy as far as cost. You got to deal with it, right? So you have all those issues. Now, on top of that, it's something we didn't have as a generation you have to be nervous about now. Now you have to really pay attention to the infrastructure of your city, right? And we did another show on this, which is very interesting. A lot of the cities this year, because we're going into an election, municipal election, we're going, you know, the city of Toronto, Mississauga, all the Edmonton, everywhere, they're all going to have, looking at new councils, right? New city councils. So all of them said, okay, we don't want to put up property tax, so we're going to take money out of our reserve fund, right? And we're going to pay for our bills with money that we put in this reserve fund for a rainy day, so we don't show property tax increases, right? Smart.
I think, for now.
But now, think about it. Think about the combination. Think about where we are right now, right? So now you've taken money from your reserve fund. You've deferred development charges for anyone building. So you're not getting that revenue. And now you have a war that could cause spikes in gas and everything else. So all the rainy day scenarios, unfortunately, are culminating, right? Now, I hope it doesn't go long, and I hope we don't have all these issues. But again, these are all the reasons you have rainy days. So now, if I'm buying a home, I got to really spend some time, and I got to look at the city I'm buying it in. And did they spend enough time, and is their infrastructure young enough to carry me for a decade So I'm not sitting there and I'm not in the Calgary situation, or I'm not in another city situation where I'm diminishing. I'm not in a flood zone. Look at, there's cities today due to development that when it rains get flooded out. And, we all sit there and we go, man, I don't know what you do it. I do it. I'm glad I don't own a home in there.
100%. I'm driving around Toronto, and those houses, they're built and the garage is underneath the house.
Yeah.
And you drive down into the garage, and I look and I'm like, oh yeah, that's going to be a nice, that's a mini Lake Ontario waiting to happen there. And they think that with a sewage, with a linear sewage, they have a linear sewage line that they think that little thing is going to solve, and then of course it backs up and off it goes, right? So
I'll throw some that
horrible design.
Then a new wrinkle in all this comes up. A friend of mine works with us in another business, comes in the other day. He goes, I got this notice in the mail. I said, well, notice? What notice did you get? They want to test for radon in my house.
Oh boy.
I'm not even going to say the city, because I'm not even going to say, because it's going to, I don't want to gas it. But he says, yeah, the city's testing for radon in my neighborhood now. Right?
Wow.
And I'm like, and he goes, what do you think? And I go, well, I don't think good.
There's nothing good about that.
Right?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, hopefully it's negative. And I go, but I said, first of all, I think.
How old is the house? Out of curiosity.
Oh, the house is 50 years old, and he renovated it. So he's the guy who bought it. Same situation as my dad, almost the guy who bought my dad's house. He bought it, fixed it up, and now he's sitting on this property, beautiful piece of land. But I said, and so he came back to me about 2 hours later. He goes, "Ooh, I just went and researched this." I go, "Yeah, ooh, right? What do you do with this now?"
Yeah,
right. So now, is again, rent versus buy.
There's so many X factors, Paul.
It's not as easy as when you're parents. So when your parents are sitting there, and the reason I tell it for people who are younger, and I always say that to them, I said, "Hey, listen, I love my parents. I love my dad, and I love the whole crew. I've talked about them on the show before, but the advice I got from them was very limited." Because they lived in a generation where all these concerns are not on the table anymore, right? They're not. And so, as time went on, I kind of realized, and I was lucky enough to grow up in a family of tradesmen and stuff, where I realized that their experience was very limited to what they knew. And so, there's all these other wrinkles you got to consider now. And I think,
going back to this idea that there's a lot of money being made online. There's also a lot of learning that's happening online as well, right? So, like the amount of ways that you can educate yourself prior to becoming a homeowner or an investor. I just still think that option one for anyone that's thinking whether I should rent and buy is how about both? Why don't we talk about, we have to think about that there could be both. Why don't you rent where you work and buy where you can afford?
Yes.
How about that idea. If we can blanket statement something in this show.
Rental property.
Rent, yeah, of course.
Rental property,
absolutely.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Rent where you work and buy where you can afford. The only caveat is, yes, of course, it has to be a rental property.
Yes.
So you're happily renting, if you work downtown Toronto, no problem. Go rent a little spot downtown Toronto. But at the same time, you can go to Peterborough, buy a house, turn it into a legal duplex, rent that out, check it out on the weekends or not, pay somebody $150 a month to manage it for you.
Yep.
And I think that checks off all the boxes in terms of travel to work, in terms of proximity to the things where you need to be, in terms of, am I building generational wealth for myself? Yes, you are. You're getting a house paid off. It checks off all the boxes. If you stayed this late on the show, that's the nugget. That's what I want to leave you with.
Condition, though? Can I add a couple conditions?
Hit me.
All right. City infrastructure, your own property infrastructure. I think you need now more than ever, you need to do your due diligence and dig in, make sure all those things are on your side, and you're not going to end up being on the wrong side of this equation. I think if you do all those things, I still think it's a great investment. I think the amount of due diligence you have to do outside of your property and inside your property has to be increased.
Yep. Agreed.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.